So I love the story of the woman that she's bought into this story about how busy she is, and that's her new mantra. And so she's out running errands and rushing around, and she's down on one of the main roads, and she's coming up on this traffic light, and the man in front of her, the light's green, but it's turning yellow, and she's just really clear he's as busy as she is and going to go right through it. Well, he doesn't. He slams on brakes, and he stops right there. Well, she just lost it. And she starts laying on her horn, blowing her horn. She's doing sign language out the window, yelling at him. And all of a sudden, a police officer's kind of observing what's going on, so he pulls her over. Says, "Ma'am, I need your driver's license, and I need your registration." So she gives it. And he looks at her, and he kind of checks things out, and he says, "Ma'am, you're going to have to go down to the station with me." She said, "Okay." So she gets in the car, she goes down to the station, and in a couple of hours he came and he got her. He said, "Ma'am, you're free to go." She said, "Well, I'm grateful, but I have to admit I'm kind of confused. I don't know what I did." He said, "Well, ma'am, you have to think about it from my point of view. I'm watching what you did with the car in front of you to that man, and I'm looking at your car, and you have unity as a bumper sticker. You have World Day of Peace. You have love each other. You have come from your heart, and I saw how you were acting, and I assumed you were driving a stolen car." You know, that was a movable, a shakeable moment in my life when I heard that story. Actually, it still is now. When I think of people like myself due to religiosity or false teachings or whatever it might have been, I think of the years in my life that I allowed the true me to be stolen. Notice I said I allowed. Not blaming, I'm just saying I allowed that to be so. I allowed the true identification of myself to not be revealed and coming forth because I had bought into a set of ideas. But the bigger part of this story for me and what I'm engaged in today with you is about the fact of how we can be so incongruent in our lives, how we can be inconsistent. It's not where you're consistent in your life that is where you reach the accomplishments. It's where you are inconsistent that keeps you from reaching them. Do you get what I'm saying? These inconsistencies add up. And they create a level that we're not laser focused on our dreams, on our values, on our ideals. In other words, you say that family is one of your most important principles. Then why do you gather your family over, even in social distancing, and sit the whole time on your phone? Inconsistent, right? Why do you say that you represent the most dynamic and magnificent teaching in the world, and when the least little thing comes in, you call your panic committee and start doing your story? That's inconsistent, isn't it? Or when there's the diagnosis, even though it's extremely helpful, and we live in a world that we're human and we do have a body, but why do we give power to the diagnosis versus the solution of the Great Spirit that is lying dormant within us, that is saying, "Wake up, come out"? It's like a man said, I heard years ago at my high school graduation, to go ahead after you graduate and practice spirituality. Please don't wait until you get a diagnosis or that you're so aged in your life you decide it's the last alternative. Please become an active participant in your life. When I look at the parable that Jesus taught about the two sons in the vineyard, the story is the father wants help. He goes to one of his sons and asks him, "Will you help me?" And the son said no. And then he changed his mind. And then he went to the other son and he said, "No, I will not." When you look at that, I think that is a part of who we are all of our lives. We agree to doing something and then we don't show up. Or we say we're not going to do it and then we change our minds. And I don't know about you, but I think that is part of, in our human suit, of what we really need to look at within our inconsistencies. Does this work for you? Because I've still got a few minutes left. Okay, good. I'm glad. So you either say you don't want to and you change your mind. My question to you is, why did you change your mind? Or was it your mind that really changed, or did someone talk you into it? Did someone talk you into it? If you are doing anything in your life right now because someone talked you into it, that's what they ought to be doing, not you. Okay? Because unless it is your mind and you are aligned with your awareness and your vibration, it will hold everybody up. Literally, you are in the way. So if you're looking at those situations in your job and in your marriage and in your life and in your family and go, why is this not working? It's because you're not working. Now, you can work on your mind. You can get there in your own awareness. But if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, only the wrong will come. Isn't that what Reverend Ron said? It's called first cause, right? And so it's understanding that, or refusing to do the good that is right there in front of us. So how are we inconsistent with those stories of our lives? Albert Einstein said, if it's not simple to explain, then apparently you don't fully understand it. I would go a step further. If it's not simple to explain, right, then you don't fully understand it. And it also means that you're not fully living it. Because if you were living it and the teacher was called within you, you would be able to explain it in a simple way. And deeper than that, you wouldn't have to explain it to anybody because they could just see that you got it. Are you with me? They would just see that you got it. You don't have to tell people who you are if you are that. Hallelujah. It's the people that are telling you who they are that, I don't know, it makes me suspicious. Because if it wasn't self-evident, then I wouldn't need to explain it to you. Years ago, I was just a kid, and I was kind of cocky a little bit. I know you find that surprising. Just a tad arrogant, and you probably find that surprising. But I was in religious science, and I had just started out. And I went before the leaders, and I said to them, this is not a good name, religious science. And so I said, it takes 45 minutes to not explain what we are. To explain what we're not. You know, our religious science. Well, you said you're spiritual. Yes, we are. Yeah, but you have the name religious in your name. I know that's what they named us. I know. Well, are you Scientology? No, we're not. No, but why are you science? And it would be all the things we weren't. All the things we weren't. Until one day, the branding specialist came along, and they decided to change their name, Centers for Spiritual Living. Now, I assure you, I wasn't the only one that had complained about that name. But for the grace of God, finally they listened, yes, to someone along the way that had some wisdom to impart. But the same is true. You say, well, how does this apply to me? You might even ask me, how does this apply to me? Thank you for asking. Now that you've asked, I would say that is what people do. We spend conversations with our inconsistencies, telling people who we don't want to be, telling them what we don't want, telling them what we don't like, telling them about the issues at hand and talking about it. That's our 80%. Our 80% is talking about that instead of all the solutions that come to us when we step in a new place and say, I have a solution to that. I have an idea about that. I want you to know that I magnify the Lord. Yes. How did that get missed? I magnify the Lord. Oh, don't sign up for that. I magnify the Lord. Myrtle Fillmore said exactly the same thing. She said that if you want your life to be joyful, if you want your life to be prosperous, if you want your life to be dynamic, if you want your life to be energetic, you cannot go around toting old habits and old conversations in your life. You must free yourself from those and let those go. And that is the beauty of our principles, isn't it? Unity principle number 1 is God is all there is, a power that's greater than we are, and we can use it. Right? Knowing number 2 is we are the same. We are the same. We are made in the image and likeness of God, so we are pulling that energy into us. If you're still talking about the same problem for 4 months, where is God as being infinite in your life? You're here to magnify the law, you see. You're here to magnify your understanding. You're here to magnify what you believe. Don't go small, step up. Get bigger in that reality. If you're still talking and chatting about the same things, you must not believe in an infinite God because it's not evident. If you've not even gotten a solution yet, you may want to revisit that. I may want to revisit that. So where are we coming from, right? Do we get hooked on facts, or are we really living in spiritual truth? When you hear about the storms in New Orleans, do you start telling everybody about it? When you hear the fires in California, of course you're compassionate. You check in with people. You let people know you love them. We just sang, I am so blessed by the beloved Karen Drucker. Send her a prayer. She's right there where the fires are. I checked in with her. Of course, we check in. We check in. We're real. We're authentic. But then we go into the closet of our understanding. We do our work. We do our work. We pray it out. We pray it away. We pray for rain, do we not? We step into that. We are needing not to tone down. We're needing to lift up. Can't just talk about influencing people. That's a workshop. We're talking about a way of living. We're talking about standing stern and standing and knowing that not only this too shall pass, that gives us this glorified excuse that we don't have to do anything about it. That's not the answer. The answer is, this is passing because I'm allowing it to pass through me as a new understanding. A new understanding. Wow, the power of that. Edwin Gaines said, and she is a millionaire prosperity teacher. Imagine that concept. Isn't that inviting? But she said that she went through a dark period, and she said to God, she said, God, here I am. I'm Edwin. I'm your lady. Tell me what to do. She said, and God spoke back, Edwin, I'm your God. You tell me what to do. Wow! Imagine that essence, you see. The inconsistencies is to say that we are healed. We are not here to be broken things. We are here to be mighty and brave and bold, and we're here to let the scars shape us into a new awareness of who we are. As I said for my birthday message last week, that your parents did their job, you were born. It is not their job to birth you. And you will be birthed 1,000 and 1,000 times over again in your life if you are about being birthed. But if you are into blaming, if you're into I'm stuck in my positionality, if you're into I keep changing my mind about what I want to do and what I'm going to do, then that is not allowing yourself to be birthed. Being birthed takes courage. Being birthed takes bravery. Being birthed says, fire, go away. Being birthed says, storm, go somewhere else. The storm within me is bigger than the active weather storm within you. Wow, imagine that level of birthing. And please free everybody that you're holding on to that supposedly did something to you. First of all, the only way they did something to you is you allowed it. Can you say that out loud with me? I allowed it. Bless these people's hearts. Let them go. Let them go, because every time you're bringing them up of what they did to you that you allowed to do to you 30 years ago, you're putting out a not so good prayer in their vibration, you see. And more importantly, you are putting karma in your prayer. You see what I mean? Aren't you big enough to just go and let that go? Someone anonymous said, if we don't heal what we feel harmed us, we bleed on people that never cut us. Wow. If we don't heal what we perceive has harmed us, we bleed on people who have not cut us. And until that awareness has come, And that's my yearly prayer. Is there something needs to be cleaned up and cleared up? Is there something I'm holding on to, some made-up story, some perception, something that I'm like making it all about someone else? Am I holding on to that? Because it is time to free them, and it is time to clear my karma on that. Does that make sense to you? It's like the guy said on Facebook this week. He said, anytime I'm very convinced that I'm a nice person, but it's when I'm behind somebody that's going really slow in traffic that then I'm able to check in and make sure, indeed, am I really a nice person? Does anybody relate to that? Yeah, remember they're watching, right? And some minister might continue to tell your story over and over again about how you act in traffic with bumper stickers in your car. You see, you just never know, You just never know what's going to unfold in your life. There's a story about two boys that they were in a small village, and they were stealing sheep. And so they were convicted. And so part of the way that they held them in bondage back then is they would brand the criminals or the people that, did wrong. And so they branded on their forehead ST, as in sheep thief. Okay? And so one of the boys was so devastated by the scar that was on his forehead and what he represented that he went away and nobody ever heard from him again. He went and just had a mediocre life, you see. Whereas the other brother stayed right there where he lived. He showed up. He still looked at, how can I make my life more consistent? How can I make my life more magical? How can I move forward in this energy? Years passed, and the young boy then became an old man. And one day somebody in the street saw him and said to another man, why does he have ST on his forehead? And the man said, I don't really remember the story, actually. I've kind of forgot it. I think it means he was a saint. Only you remember the story that you have branded within yourself. Only you remember the abusive relationship. Only you remember how insane you were in the throes of drugs. Only you remember certain things. Most people have moved on. Isn't it time you do the same? If you want people to be excited about your life, get excited about your life. If you want to tell people opportunity is right there, then you need to be showing that opportunity is right there with you. Whatever is coming out of your mouth, unless you can simplify it, unless you can fully explain it in an understandable way, by the way that you live, go to work. Go to work inside yourself. We owe it to ourselves to do so. It is the power. Now, I don't know about you, but I did not, principle number one isn't God is all there is, and number two, my whole identity is about whether people like me or not, or my whole identity is knowing that I'm okay, or my whole identity is complaining. Absolutely not. There's a power in the universe that's greater than you are, and you are the same. And how are you using that power? Because it takes just as much energy to be successful as it does to be unsuccessful. As a matter of fact, it takes more energy to be unsuccessful because you continue to recycle what you had from your past. You've had from your past. So I'm going to close with a story about a man. He accidentally goes off the road in an old farm area, and the farmer's coming up with his horse named Buddy. He's walking along, and he says to the man, Buddy can pull you out. He said, let's click him onto the bumper and we'll get you going if you want. And he says, yeah, please help me. I can't lift up this car. So he hooks up Buddy, and the farmer says, Coco, let's go. Horse doesn't move. Jesse, let's go. Horse doesn't move. Chloe, let's go. Horse doesn't move. Finally, the farmer says, Buddy, let's go. And Buddy pulls and moves the car out of the ditch. And the man was so thankful, but he said, I don't understand. Why did you call the horse by the wrong name 3 times when his name was Buddy? He said, well, Buddy's blind. And if I let him think he was the only one doing the work, he wouldn't have done anything. Well, every now and then we get a little metaphysically blind, don't we? We get just a little metaphysically confused when we're too much into the darkness of our own story. We are not alone. You are not alone. You have an energy and a power and an infinite intelligence that flows through every cell and fiber of your being. It has no memory of who you were this time, that time, this time. You are the one living out that truth within your being. Call yourself by your real name, for you are here to magnify the Lord. And it doesn't say if and when and because of, and if and when and because of. And it doesn't say you're here to magnify the Lord, but you can go on permanent timeout during COVID. It does not say that. It says you are here to magnify the Lord right now. You are here to lift up your children right now. You're here to lift up the planet right now. You are here to magnify the essence of who you are right now, or move over, because we're all coming through. God bless you for this amazing journey that we call life. Thank you for being here.